It's Bobby if
That's Bobby.
yeah.
Coach Bedwell is here. He's got a lot of different hats, but I know he's the OC at Sullivan East High School. Coach, thanks for being here.
Yeah, appreciate it, Coach.
Yeah, you got a lot of hats. I don't know if the intro would last the whole podcast or not.
That's fine. I need no introduction and not that important.
We're all important. We all coach, so we're all important, right?
Something like that.
Maybe not to the parents, but to other coaches, we're very important to the parents. Maybe not. Maybe not so much. Um, so let's talk about you. You got a long past. Let's talk about you. How'd you got into football? How you started coaching? I know you played. You've been all over the place. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, so from a small town in Arkansas near the Texas border, and growing up from youth football all the way through high school, played in the wing tee.
Oh God,
Yeah, uh,
that's cursing
probably,
words.
and then played college baseball for a few years. Only played 1 year of college football back in 2005. Small college in North Dakota, and we were running the veer there.
Oh,
And so in my first year in Europe, ran the veer in Switzerland in '06. And probably it wasn't until my first game in Finland in '07. I probably threw the ball 30 times in that first game, and that probably matched what I'd thrown in my entire career combined attempts. And then the following years when I started running the air raid, and since then, after that, it was nothing but throwing the football. I really didn't even know I was good at throwing the football until I started playing in this offense.
did your arm hurt after that 30 throws? You're like, what is going on here? I'm not used to this throwing stuff.
I mean, yeah, a little bit, but not necessarily for that. I mean, let's say I played baseball forever, was a pitcher, but I tore my rotator cuff while I was playing college baseball, which is kind of what led me to making the move over to football because I didn't have to throw the ball near as much in the
Right.
veer. uh, but I wasn't a very good runner either, so I really didn't have much going for me. But luckily through running this offense and starting to understand it, I did well enough to have a pretty good career playing, and that led me to making a lot of connections along the way.
Mhm.
That's opened up a lot of opportunities in coaching and now consulting, and I think it's about time. Something that's always held me back. I've had people ask for years, like, why haven't you coached at higher levels? And it's because I don't have a bachelor's degree. Uh, but this spring, finally, for the first time since the fall of '06, I'm back in school, and I should be done by May or June. I should have my bachelor's. So
There you go.
after this fall, we'll be we'll be taking the college opportunity serious because Lord knows there's been a ton over the years that I've been contacted about.
And you,
Almost all of them have been like, "Oh, sorry, can't do anything for you if
you
you
need
don't
that
have a
expensive
degree."
piece of paper to do it.
Gosh, it really is, and that's I mean. I've looked under all that these avenues. I was like, okay, I'll get one in culinary arts or whatever it is, whatever the fastest thing I can get
Right.
because I just need that. And yeah, so it's going good now. I found a university. It's a branch of the University of Maine that does school at like you can do it at your own pace.
Right.
And basically for the last month, I've been a fiend on that website getting stuff done. I think I in 3 weeks I finished 32 credit hours.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So so
Yeah.
we're
Get that done because school sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It just sucks.
yeah yeah that's I mean that's why I put it off for so long.
Oh yeah. Isn't that crazy that you need that? Like you have experience playing, you have this knowledge, and you can't go coach in college with all that experience. Like you think that experience would outmatch that piece of paper?
Yeah, man, it's been wild because I think now I have if you want to consider Europe professional, I've got over 10 years of head coaching experience at the professional level. I've been a college offensive coordinator at junior colleges and Division III private schools that would allow it for 8 years now. I've been, you know, coordinator position coach in professional spring leagues in the States. And, but then I'm still told that I can't go coach a 1A high school in a lot of states as a position coach, because I don't have the qualifications. But a 22-year-old kid that's
Yeah.
just taking some classes does. And I mean, I understand it whenever it comes to college, in a sense that, you know, well, maybe I used to understand it now, not so much anymore. In the past, I would say, yeah, okay, what's the main purpose of for the college athletes is like any other students is to graduate, and how can I
Hmm.
recruit you and explain the importance of getting an education when I don't have it myself. But at this point, it's all about NIL money and transferring and
Oh
whatnot.
yeah.
So I mean, now I no longer really have that feeling of understanding it, because the game has changed so much.
Oh yeah. It's not about staying and developing. It's about I'm going to make money. Oh, I don't like you. I'm going to leave now because I don't want to battle it out.
The worst thing is that you see all of these, you see quarterbacks like a starting quarterback for Ohio State or wherever, and they're like, okay, I just was a top 5 quarterback in the nation. I'm going to enter the portal next year.
Hmm.
You got guys from literally top 10 teams that were some of the best players in the country that are like, let's just see what else is out there. Maybe I've slept with all the girls on campus here. Let's see, let's see what those girls down south have to offer, something like that.
Right.
And but I mean, I can't imagine that it's anything other than some of them are situations like that, because I don't know how you couldn't be happy being a star quarterback of a top 10 team when you know that you're destined to get drafted and make a lot of money in the sport.
Well, that's why I liked JJ McCarthy last year because he could have left, but he came back. He was like, I'm going to stay here and try to finish it out and get a national championship, even though I'm an Illinois fan and I had to watch that. But still, it's like I respect that. Like a lot of that team came back, and then you look at other teams and they're like, well, like you said, it's either that or they're bored, and some do it for the right reasons. Maybe they're homesick and they got to get closer to home, but most of the time, it's looking like I'm not playing enough. I got an argument with a coach. Maybe I don't like the way they're talking to me. I'm going to leave. And then sometimes they don't find a home or they're not going to find what they want. And that coach is going to be like, well, you left. You're not coming back because we've already moved on.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. I don't know. The game's changed. I mean, I'm all for athletes living a comfortable life, because they do bring a lot
Mhm.
of money to universities. But I think that there's got to be better ways to do it than how we're doing it right now. I mean, one idea I've always liked was that I've had is you can't get it NIL money until you finish the entire 2 full semesters
Yeah.
at a school or something, just so that there's incentive. You're still on scholarship, you're still getting food, but okay, you got that $2 million NIL deal.
Yeah.
You're not going to get it and then bolt right after the season
Right. Or I just
or
told,
before the season.
yeah, I just told the coach, and it kind of sucks. It could be, hey, you get one free time to transfer. You get a second one if your head coach leaves, but you have to make that decision within like a 30-day window of leaving. Like there has to be something where they can make how much money as they want, but it's just the leaving every year, everything else. There has to be like a limit to be like, you can't leave, you know? But coaches too, they also can't leave. That's another issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's making it a lot more cutthroat for the players now, because the coaches are saying, well, all right, I he's probably going to leave anyway, so let's just pull a scholarship.
Right.
Where I think that scholarship offers, or I think what used to be a call or a letter of interest is
Hmm.
now every school is just saying, hey, we're offering you a scholarship, which basically means from 95% of the kids, if you choose to come here and nobody else better than you wants to come here, then we might have a spot for you, provided somebody doesn't jump into the portal before you sign that we like more than.
Right.
And I mean, it's hard to. I mean, you can knock the system, but you can't knock the coaching staffs for that because that's what every other team is doing. And I
That's
guess at the
true.
same time, you can't knock the athletes because that's what every other.
That's true. Yeah. It's the Wild West, I don't know how to fix it. I don't blame coaches, players, because if that's how it is, that's how it is. And we
Yeah,
all kind of have to, all the college coaches I talk to, they're like, hey, we can complain about it or we just kind of ease into it and do what we do until they change it. But coaches are getting frustrated too, because I was just at a spring practice and I got to watch the team up close. And at the end, I was talking to the line coach. These thing called rising stars are getting recruited. They come walking up to them, they're talking to them, which I thought was cool. They start handing them business cards, like, "Yeah, coach, get a hold of me, get a hold of me, get a hold of me." And this other guy looked at him and go, "Are you shitting me? They're handing out business cards now." And he goes, "This is how it is now. They got these business cards and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Oh my god, what happened to phone calls and visits and just all that stuff?" He goes, "We still do that, but now I got to handle all these business cards." I'm like, "That's so dumb."
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, and it's scary to think where it's going to be a few years from now. I mean, that's something that me and Mummy talk about this a lot because we work a bit within the NIL industry. With our
Yeah.
Mummy with our Mummy and Associates, and it's we've kind of predicted that okay, give it 3 or 4 years, and you're probably going to have what's known as the Power Five, or I guess Power Four now.
Mhm.
Is probably going to branch away from the NCAA and just be their own entity,
Right.
and you're actually going to be giving players salaries.
Yeah.
I just that's got to be the next move. I don't know where else you go from here
Right.
because the thing is, how do you when you already have athletes getting such big deals, like the Caitlin Clark I saw just got a $5 million NIL offered by from Ice Cube. And I mean, how do you go back from that? How do you say, okay, well, the former athletes were getting $5 million deals, but we're taking NIL away now, and it's just going to go back to having a scholarship.
Mhm.
And if that happens, there is gonna be somebody that's got some common sense that says, okay, well, we're gonna start a league that has nothing to do with college sports,
Right.
and we're just gonna let all these top pro prospects play in our league, and we'll give them salary, and they're gonna make money,
Right.
and then they can go to the NFL when they're 20 or whatever it is.
Yeah, because like Alabama could just live off the name of Alabama. They'll get money. They could go.
Absolutely.
Ohio State could go. Like those schools, they could go start their own. I said that like a year ago or two. I'm like, they could go get away from scholarship money. They have NIL and stuff. Like, we'll just pay players to come here. Like,
Yeah.
it's gonna happen if this continues down this path.
I mean,
And
how many boosters are just gonna say like, all right, well, I'm not giving money to the University of Alabama anymore. I'm giving my money to the Alabama Football Club.
yep, yep, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. Uh, and
And
it's
I'd like to
actually,
say, we'd love to have this back in our day, but I mean, it wouldn't have affected me because nobody would have gave me money.
oh yeah, I know. I said that too. I was like, well, I was a walk on. I'm like, I would have got nothing, just nothing for being a walk on. Like, who the fuck is that guy?
Yeah.
Oh, um, oh, we just jumped down that rabbit hole too. Insane. Um, so how was European football for you when you played? Like, how did that happen? How'd you end up playing European football?
Um, so when I was up at the D3 in North Dakota, our head coach at the time, Jim Dotson, he'd spent a year or two in the UK, and so he coached over there a little bit, and he brought it up to me in passing at some point, and I've always been interested in traveling, so I just started looking up American football in Europe, and at the time it definitely wasn't as popular as it is right now from number of Americans going over there, especially coaches, because you're getting you know big time coaches, NFL coaches,
Mhm.
Art Briles, guys like that are all going over there coaching now. It definitely wasn't like that at the time, and so for me, it was probably a good time to get in because I mean, I ended up having arguably as good of a career as anybody's had over there.
Right.
But I got in at the right time. Had I had the same resume that I had, and I was say 10 years later, I came out in say 2015,
Hmm.
I would have been scoffed at for trying to get over there. And I said it like, no,
Wow.
no way we're taking you. So I was lucky that I got in at a time that it was still, I guess, kind of new for bringing over a lot of Americans. And yeah, I went over to Basel, Switzerland my first year making $500 a month,
Wow.
which
Wow.
I remember McDonald's there, or it's 500 Swiss francs, which wasn't even $500. And I remember 20-piece nugget at McDonald's was 25 Swiss francs.
Wow.
So I remember like looking at it and thinking like, okay, well, I was like, I can live off nuggets if I buy a 10 or a 20 piece every 2 days.
Yeah.
I can eat 10 nuggets a day, and then mom can send me ramen noodles or something like that. And she did actually send care packages of ramen noodles and beef jerky over to Switzerland. Um, because even cooking food wasn't that much cheaper. And yeah, so it was a bit of a struggle because I didn't go over there with like any money saved up or anything like that. And then the second year I went to a place in a small town in Finland, Pori, Finland. It's actually where Mike Leach is the team Mike Leach had coached, interestingly enough. And I think it was the same deal. I think I made 500 or 600 a month, but there was at least two meals a day included. And then, then the lowest I made Serbia in 2008, I made 200 a month, but that was actually went a lot farther than everything else because 200 was the average salary in Serbia.
Okay.
And when you figure housing included, I mean, I was actually living okay at 200 and took a winless team from the previous year. And we won the national championship my first year there. And so then I went big time on them and I was like, I want 500 to come back. And they're like, sure.
Should have went
And
higher.
yeah, yeah, probably. But yeah. And then, from like a benefit standpoint and stuff, by the end of it, I was making close to 2000 a month with, housing paid, meals, car, and that. So like nobody's over there just getting wealthy. And most
Hmm.
of the big time coaches that you see go over, like guys like Browse and stuff, from my understanding of most of them, they're getting pretty much no salary. They're getting like nice housing with their wife and flights, and you
Right.
know, and they don't really need the money. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was always I never struggled too much there. I always got by and was able to have fun and stuff. And then from the football standpoint, it's so diverse from country to country. You play some places that, I played in front of 6 or 7,000 fans. I played in front of 150 in a championship game,
Wow.
depending on the
Wow.
country or the level in the country. And I've played on teams where I had, you know, five guys with 5, 6 guys with D1 experience on the field with me, and on teams where I was the only American and level was probably lower than a good high school in the
That's
States. It's
crazy.
just really, really diverse. Had a team where our starting middle linebacker was the starter for LSU, and then one of the outside linebackers was 44 years old
Oh, wow.
and smoked cigarettes on the sideline at practice and stuff. And then the other outside linebacker was his son, who was like 18 years old.
That's awesome.
And so you have this like 200 tackle LSU guy in the middle of a literal father and son. And I played with, I think, two or three fathers and sons over my time. And
What-
yeah, it's just really diverse.
Yeah.
The level can be extremely good with great crowds, and it can be really, really bad with no crowds.
So how'd you end up with the air raid? Just coaches over there did it? Was it before you got there? Uh,
No, so in that, so my third year in Europe, 2008, is when I went to the Serbian team and won the championship. And then also part of I kind of became the Jackie Moon of European football after that year because
That's awesome.
on top of asking for the higher salary, I was like, I also want to be the head coach, offensive coordinator, and quarterback if I come back.
Oh wow,
And they
okay.
were and they were like, okay, yeah, whatever gets you back here because our rivals in Belgrade had also made an offer to me, and
Right.
there's no way they were going to let that slip. And they didn't want it to go into a money thing because Belgrade definitely had more money than we had at the time. And so it was like our year-end party and kind of my going away party. And when I made when I said my demands, he was like, "Okay, done." So it was then going back because we probably threw the ball 25, 30 times a game that year. It's first time really doing true spread shotgun. And I was like, I'd always loved air raid from, I remember back when Mumme and Leach were at Kentucky in their first year, they played,
Hmm.
I'm from Southern Arkansas, and they played Central Arkansas. University of Arkansas would always play, at the time, 2 games a year. This year, now they still play one, I think, in Little Rock because Fayetteville, where the university's at, it's like far northwest corner, and Little
Uh-huh.
Rock's dead center. So they'd always play so that all of the state can come and watch a game or two.
Right.
And usually it'd be like a lower SEC game and then, one of the kind of pay for play teams that you played. So, and
Hmm.
so they want to give you wins when they play there. And Kentucky had never been too good. So Arkansas scheduled Kentucky, and that was that first year running the air raid. And we ended up beating them, knocked down a pass in the end zone at the end of the game. But man, it was just, I never seen
Yeah.
anything like it with just how they were throwing the ball all over the place. And from that game on, I was just like hooked. And,
Hmm.
as Leach left and went to Oklahoma for a year as a Stoops coordinator and then to Texas Tech, I was like his biggest fan. And, always knew that Mumme had kind of been the guy that started it all and Leach had been under him. And so I was I always kind of saw them as my two, I guess,
Hmm.
coaching idols. And I guess my Tony Franklin, who had been the running back coach
Hmm.
for them at Kentucky and kind of split off and started calling the offense the Tony Franklin system and doing seminars and things like that. One of my best friends from high school was an assistant coach at a smaller school in Arkansas, and they were running the Tony Franklin system.
Okay. Yeah.
So I went and I spent some time with their staff, and my buddy like marked some DVDs off for me of a lot of the material. And so that year in '09, I went back and I don't think I'd ever thrown for 300 in a game in my life. And then my first game in the air raid, I threw for like 569 and 7 touchdowns.
Oh wow.
And I was like, oh man, this is a lot of fun. Maybe I can
Yeah.
play quarterback. And yeah, we good won the championship again that year, so repeated there. And then I went to that off season, that European off season, so like December, January, I went to McMurray where Coach Mumme and his son Matt
Hmm.
were coaching at the time in Texas, and I went to a clinic there, and I was so excited to meet Coach Mumme, but Leach actually was the head coach of some All Star game, college All Star game, and he got Mumme to come coach with him. So Mumme like backed out last second and didn't
Oh.
come, but I got to spend a lot of time with Matt and met Sonny Cumby and a lot of really good air raid coaches and learned a lot. And then Matt didn't know me at all. I emailed with Hal going into that clinic, but I'd never even talked to Matt. And I remember Matt sat there with me for about 3 hours after the clinic, just going over hand signals, any question I had.
Hmm.
And, I just kind of ran through with what I had there for the next few years. And then in 2013, after my season in Europe, I got in touch with Coach Mumme, who was at SMU at the time with June Jones. And I just started emailing the questions, and he'd always email me back. And so we just write with each other a bunch. And 2 years later, at the AFCA convention in 2015, that was my first time getting to speak at the AFCA convention. And Coach Mumme had a booth there for game day skins, like the helmet wrap stuff they were doing.
Hmm.
And I went and introduced myself, and yeah, then he asked if I wanted to come be on his XM radio show and talk about European football. So I went back to his hotel that evening, and he had a little setup there in one of the meeting rooms at his hotel, and did that. And then afterwards, he was just like, "Hey, do you want to?" He sent like two of his assistants down to make dinner reservations, and he asked me if I wanted to have dinner with him, and so just like of course, and went down there, and I mean, there's a table with like Sam Gwynn, the author who wrote the book The Perfect Pass.
Yeah.
He was writing it at that time, so Sam Gwynn was at the table. There was a lot of these old tycoons from Texas and some big time football coaches that I'd always dreamed of meeting at the table, and yeah, interesting conversation all night and things like that. And at one point, Mommy was just like, "Stan, you're smart. I like smart coaches. I want you to come join my staff at Belhaven." And so I left my JUCO job in North Dakota and went there to work with Mommy in 15. And since then, you know, he's became, I mean, not just a mentor, but he's like a best friend to me.
Hmm.
We talk at least every other day on the phone and have a lot of things down the pipe that we're working on and that we've been working on, and some camps, different things that we're doing this summer. Yeah, I've been really blessed to build the relationship with Coach, and then through that, Matt's became a really good friend of mine. I'm going to actually go in about 2 weeks. I'm going for 3 days. I'm going to go to University of Colorado, where uh, some coaches on staff there worked with us in the spring league,
Hmm.
and so I visited them a few times already, but going to go visit them for a few days and then go visit Matt at Colorado State. So yeah, it's I feel like I paid my dues and more than a lot of people have for where
Right.
I'm at right now, but at the same time, I'm completely, I feel completely lucky and blessed that I have built the relationship with Coach Mumme and all the avenues that's opened up for me, and relationships I built, and it's been an important thing for me to always try to give back to coaches,
Hmm.
and so I've been consulting for a few years, and I haven't had any negative reviews that I know of from staffs that I went and taught the offense to over 3 days or private Zooms. Usually, if we set up a 1 hour Zoom meeting, it's not uncommon that I'll be there for 2 hours with them, or we set up two, we talk for three and a half. I want to make sure that anybody I'm working with gets, you know, I want them to leave satisfied
Right.
and feel like they got what they wanted out of it.
Right. No, I had Matt on here last year and he was awesome. Like it was because he's like, I got 45 minutes. We got to the 45-minute mark and he goes, never mind, keep going. And it was
Yeah,
just awesome. He was like, let's just keep going. And so we
yeah,
went for a few minutes longer because they were getting ready to start practices and stuff like the real practice.
mm.
And that just awesome. Just an
No,
awesome
great dude,
person.
great dude. Love him to death. Love the whole family. They're great people.
Yeah, Hal's on my bucket list to get on, but Hal's a busy guy. But I was like, oh, Matt, I told Matt, I was like, I try to get your dad, but you'll do, just joking with him. And he
I,
thought it was funny.
I can help you get that set up.
Oh, perfect. Because
Yeah.
you talk about those books, they're on my bookshelf. Like it was very strange. What I was in high school when the Texas Tech Texas game was on. I think I was a junior in high school, maybe. And we ran the Power Eye option in high school. That's what we ran. Me and my buddy were watching that, and I looked at it and I said, when I coach, I want to run that stuff because it
Mm.
just looks awesome. It looks fun. That was the time Tim Tebow came on the scene. Oregon was on the scene. Texas Tech was on the scene. And when I started coaching, all I did was start researching passes. All I've done is research air raid. And, that was one of the things I asked Matt was, can you tell me what true air raid is? And he started laughing. And I was like, what? Because some people will run things and they go, this is air raid. And I go, well, wait a minute, though. Like, I don't think this is air raid because I've looked at it. This doesn't look like the same passes.
Yeah.
And Matt gave a perfect answer about like it's just finding space, it's finding grass, it's about what But it's just funny when people say, "Yeah, this is from an air raid playbook." I'm like, there is no air raid playbook, so I don't know
Mm.
why you call it air raid. There is none.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more philosophical and more of a mindset than the actual plays because you know, everybody runs mesh, everybody runs four birds.
Yeah.
almost everybody runs shallow cross now. Floods, people have been running forever. Crossing routes, people have run forever. So
Yeah.
it's how we practice it, how we game plan it, and how we mesh those two, and then
Mhm.
just kind of that mentality that it's really this fearless mentality that you're not worried about messing up, and you have this belief that you can score from anywhere on the field at any time.
And then I asked him, I said, so you just never run the ball, right? Made him laugh again. He goes, no, I'll run the ball if it's a 5-man box, like you got to, right? And I was like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Like you
you know,
got to.
some of Hal's things he always says is, he says, I tell the running backs, you can't run it more, but you can run it farther.
Okay. Yeah.
He's like, you run it as far as you want when we give it to you. Uh, and then the other one he used to always say that I thought was really funny was we have two run plays in the offense. We run on the field when the drive starts. We throw a touchdown, and then we run off the field.
That's awesome.
Right. But I mean, with that said, we're actually really good at running the football. The last time that we coached together in the spring league in 21, we were the top passing team in the league, but we also led the league in rushing. And we,
Okay.
we went to the championship game in Houston, and we're staying in the same hotel with the team from Houston there, and I'm talking to a D lineman with their team that I had played against in Europe, and he's just like, "Well, y'all are easy because y'all can't run the ball, so it's easy to stop you." And I'm just like, "You do realize we ran for more yards than you and everybody else too?" And he's like, "No way." He's like, "All y'all do is throw." And I'm like, "Cut the stats." I'm like, "We're running for more than anyone." I was like, "We don't run it as much as y'all, but we're run it farther than you do.
That's
You
awesome.
just don't pay attention to it because we're really good in the passing game as well." But yeah, I'd say we're usually about 60% pass, 40% run, which is surprising to a lot of people because they think we're completely extreme. I'd say we're more extreme in the splits
Okay.
with the offensive line and some different things like that than we are in actual run to pass ratio. And I mean, what Mummy's kind of he's kind of evolved himself. Where when I was with him at Belhaven, I can remember we were playing at McMurray, his former school, and we're at halftime and we're winning. And whenever they like print out the stat sheets for us at the half, and we're looking at them, and we'd ran for more than we had thrown. We were running for like 9 yards a carry or 10
Oh
yards a
wow.
carry. And Hal was like, "Oh, we're gonna run mesh and six every play in the second half." He's like, and the first time we called a run was like 3 minutes left in the game, and we lost.
Oh wow.
And but he at the time he was really stubborn about the pass, but now he's so like in the spring league. I mean, we'd get the lead. If we got the lead, he'd just want to sit on the clock.
Hmm.
He would just run the shit out of the ball.
Right.
And so, I think that's a bit of a misconception that we don't run the ball or won't run the ball. We prefer to throw the ball.
Right. Because what did I see? Mike Leach was like the last person that wants to throw it all the time, I guess. Like he was the last true. He still ran. I think at Washington State, he started running a little more. But I remember in
Yeah,
Texas Tech, he had like hand down H backs and stuff like that. So I still think he ran it a little
yeah, he
bit.
did. He did. I mean, I don't. I mean, the thing about Leach is that I don't think he was ever. His mindset was, I'm going to call pass plays, but my quarterback can check to a run when it's
Hmm.
there.
Right.
And a lot of times, how much they ran the ball in a season would depend on how what the quarterback chose to do. If he chose to
Yeah.
check to the run or if he stuck with the pass play that coach would call. And so, I mean, I don't think Leach was ever against running the football, and he had some really good seasons running the ball as well.
Hmm.
You know, at Texas Tech, you mentioned, he had some H backs and tight ends with hands down and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And when we were in camp in the XFL in 2020 in Dallas, we were talking about that. A bunch of us were in the meeting room talking about that. And, Mommy's like, yeah, well, the reason he stopped putting tight ends hands down is it was too hard to recruit tight ends.
Hmm.
True tight ends that could drive a D end off the ball and, run block and then still go out and catch passes well.
Right.
So he was just struggling to recruit the guys. I always just thought it was that he didn't like Adam James. So
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I thought he was like, okay, that's it. I'm done with tight ends after this. But when he got back to Mississippi State, he got back
Yeah.
to using tight ends with hands down. So I think it wasn't ever with him really an egotistical thing of I refuse to do this. It was just I don't think he really gave a shit what people thought about him and what he
Yeah.
was trying to do.
Yeah.
And so he did what he thought was best. And I mean, it's hard to argue with the results. He was one of the best offensive minds that there's ever been.
hmm And then when I've talked to high school coaches that got to go watch his practices, and they said, Steve, we were simple at first. I go watch a practice, I tear up everything, call my assistant coaches. I'm like, we're still too complicated. Like practice has to be efficient and it's so simple. Like they do the same thing every single day. Like they don't get too crazy.
Man, I tell you the wildest thing that I've seen. I mean, because the way he practices, the way that we practice, is the way for 10 plus years now. It's the only way I practice for almost 15 years now. But I'd say the only thing that I saw in my time with Coach Mumme or being around Coach Leach that blew my mind was his last season at Mississippi State 2 years ago. He um, got a call from Mumme saying, "Hey, you want to let's go watch Leach plays Arkansas at their homecoming game." He's like, "Fly here into Jackson and let's go stay with Mike and hang out with him the night before the game and watch the game and stuff like that." So we went to the team hotel and stayed in a nice suite and actually watched Matt's played against Nevada. So that
Oh,
was the
yeah.
first season that they had moved from there. So watched that. We got to hang out with Leach and talk some and all that. And then the next morning we got up and we went out in the parking lot and watched their walkthrough after breakfast. And it was the most efficient thing that I've ever seen anyone ever do in coaching. And I felt like we had great walkthroughs with Hal, and I feel like, I mean, I do them the same way that Hal does them, but gosh, they were so. I mean, I bet you they walked through a 60 play script and it felt like 5 minutes. It was
Wow.
phenomenal. It was insane, like how precise the communication was. Talk, 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 quick play, boom, back up, and it was it was the coolest thing that I've
Wow.
seen in all of my time in football was a walkthrough. But they were it was fascinating.
That's awesome. And then the other misconception was that air raid was this fast up tempo thing. And I was like, no, it can be, but it can be slowed down. Like it just looks fast because your signals are so easy. Like
Yeah.
watching Leach do, it's just one hand, he just goes boom, 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 done.
Well, Hal likes to play fast. Hal likes to play fast. I kind of differ from him in that aspect. I like to get up to the line fast,
Okay.
but I like to get up to the line and then I like my quarterback to take his time then and see. Even this year, first year at the school that I'm at with the quarterback I had, he probably caught 40% of our snaps on the season.
Okay.
And that's just, any run play, um, he can give a single route out there and, it might look like an RPO, but it's not. He just decided, okay, we got ISO called here. My X is press. My X is better than the corner. I'm just going to give him a vertical route and just catch it and not tell anybody else a thing and throw the ball.
Right.
Um, our quick games kind of turned into, we basically call it open check. Opens our 2x2 set and we just say check and we kind of have reads for the quarterback off of, we got like a cover one. One of our quick games works for one works for two, one works for three, one works for, and so he can kind of line up and say, do I like the numbers in the box to run it? If there's five in the box, consider running. We're not going to say you got to run with five in the box because then we would be a run heavy team.
Right. You don't want
We,
that. You don't want that
we
stigma.
normally have more than that. No, we don't want that. How would disown us? But it's okay. Look at the numbers in the box and know the down and distance. If
Yeah.
it's five in the box and it's 3rd and 1, run the damn ball. Um, but other than that, look and see. Okay, do you like four verts? Because that's our most called play. in our offense is four verts. Do you like four verts? If you do, roll with it. If not, go to your quick game and just you know what your reads are off of each coverage. You know,
Mhm.
if it's cover one, we like Y corner. If it's cover four, we like Y stick. We have just a different quick game for each coverage, and we kind of hammer that home in our quick game period every 3 days, whichever ones we're running, and quarterback knows what to expect, what to look for, and he gets comfortable making that read and throwing. Our receivers get comfortable understanding that against cover three, we're going to run our hitch inside fade, and if those corners bail, both of those that hitch and inside fade both know we're reading the corner.
Uh-huh.
So if that corner bails, that inside fade's not even going to turn and look for the ball. He's just going to run an inside fade and go block the corner. That
Right.
becomes a screen that's caught 5 yards downfield.
Right.
So, there's just so much of that. And it's I had a staff from Virginia come to our high school this Sunday, and I worked with them for 4 or 5 hours while we had a 7-on-7 tournament going on. And I mean, we spent the whole time on quick game. And I mean, we probably covered out of four concepts on quick game, we probably covered 20% of what we could
Wow.
have covered. And that's just, we don't run a misconception is that, and I say it all the time, we're air raid, we run whatever, 10 concepts out of 50 formations. We're simple. It's like, no,
Mhm.
that's 500 plays, bro. No, you're not simple. We run about five formations and we got, we're running verts out of all of our, 2x2, 3x1 and empty. We're running shallow out of 2x2, 3x1 and empty. We're running mesh basically out of two back and trips. We're running cell and cross pretty much out of two back.
Yeah.
Um, Two of our three screens are pretty much out of 2x2. And yeah, that's it. Like, so we're not even trying to run, we only run about five or six formations, and we're not even trying to run all of our concepts out of those five or six. We're trying, on average, we probably run each concept out of two to three formations tops.
Okay.
So we just want to be really good at that. We don't want to surprise people or be tricky or, what we want to do is just execute and our kids to be comfortable executing those plays out of the looks that they're going to get. So, and we don't even really tag in game plan. If you say our game plan, most of it's just going to say blue 92 for mesh, trips 92. We might have a post wheel tagged or something like that, but we don't have a lot of tags in our game plan. And then we just kind of in real time is when we make our tags. So we kind of say, if blue 92 is not broke, if it's working against them, why do we need to tag it?
Right.
Well, shallow, a lot of people talk about like the shallow screen now. I see people talking about that all the time.
Right.
And when they ask me about it, like it's a staple of the air raid or something, I'm like, we don't run it. We toyed with it a little and we were better at regular shallow than that.
Right.
So it kind of becomes instead of trying to play the game off of film and off of expectation of what they might do. We're not psychic, we're not Nostradamus here. We don't know. Mummy calls it you're watching Ghost if you're watching the
Mhm.
film and you're saying what they're going to be doing. And so what we do is just put together a set of plays that we think looks most of our field zones, the plays don't change all year. Like
Mhm.
coming off, we're going to have three plays. They stay the same always. Yellow is -6 to -19. Those plays are never going to change all season long. When you get in red zone and goal line, we might make a mesh one week, might be a mesh wheel the next week, or we might run the flip formation and run it to the other side. But it's pretty much going to be mesh, wide corner, and catch and throw quick game type stuff. That's it.
Right.
Um, so we're really like we don't change much at all from week to week, and it might look a little different, but that's because if we get in the game and you are stopping mesh or you are stopping shallow, now we say, okay, instead of being lazy coaches and saying, oh, we can't run mesh or shallow against them, they're too good. We say, why are they stopping?
Mhm.
If they're collisioning on mesh, run shallow because that's going to get underneath them and
Right.
that's going to force them to change what they're doing. And then you can go back to running mesh.
Right.
If the safety's covering the dig on shallow, that's when we tag a post over top of his head. If we
Mhm.
post over the dig every time all season long, we're rarely going to throw it, but it's going to be on film all year. And so they're always going to worry about that. But
Right.
if we only run verticals every time, 3 or 4 times a year, we're going to see how a team's playing it. We're going to say, hey, we need a shot right now. So we're going to run shallow 7 times that game. And we're going to see every single time we run shallow, they do it the same, they cover it the same way.
Hmm.
And that eighth time, we're going to post over them and we're going to hit that for a big play.
Right.
So that's just kind of our philosophy throughout. It's just run your base plays and find out how, if they're able to stop your base play, find out how and make them pay by changing one route or you know adding a motion or something small that's gonna open it back up for you,
Or just run the ball, coach.
or just run the ball. I mean, sometimes that's the best thing to do.
That's what my head coach would say if it's not work. He's that guy. If a pass isn't working, he says over the headset to me in the OC, he goes, "Put an H back in there and run the damn ball." That's what he says. He's like, "Run the damn ball."
Well, it's always an interesting thing because you see these teams that run like just inside zone
Hmm.
religiously. They'll run it like 25 times a game, and what does the coach say? Eventually, it's going to pop.
Yep.
Right? You run it and you get 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards, and it's like just keep running and eventually it's going to pop. We kind of take that mindset to the passing game because I mean you're never going to complete 100% or 90% of passes.
Right.
If you're really good, you're probably going to be in like the 60 to low 70 range if you're really good throwing the ball. And so if you can go into it with that understanding that every pass isn't going to be a completion, it's okay to line up and run shallow that first time and they stop it
Hmm.
and you say, "Oh, they stopped it. Let's run it again. Oh, they stopped it." And we could say like, "Well, we better not run that or we better make a change right now." But we would rather still hammer it home. Let's run it again. And it's okay if you knock it down. It's okay if we catch it for 2 yards because we're getting more reference points of what you're doing and you're getting more comfortable with seeing this look and making, and every
Right.
time we're on stick or whatever, every time we cheat the backup behind the tackle and outside, it's like, oh, it's going to be that stick concept now,
Right.
something like that. And they get used to doing it. And now they're flying down and they got the Sam flying down to cover the shoot route by the running back. And then the Mike is cheating over to cover the stick route. So we start to see every time we cheat the backup, that's their adjustment. Sam cheats out a little, he goes to the flat. Mike
Hmm.
cheats over a little, he covers the stick. So then we say, okay, hey, we got that 1 step slant backside.
Right.
As soon as that, let's cheat him up. Oh, damn, the Mike moved over again. Let's just catch it and pop that slant right away and let him run because he can
Right.
beat the wheel inside and there's nobody underneath. So that's kind of the whole philosophy with about every concept that we run is tried and true. You can't, it's not going to get stopped by, whatever your defense does. There's going to be something open there or something we
Mhm.
can change to get somebody open. It's kind of how when Leach went to Mississippi State, he had that Stanford quarterback that transferred
Mhm.
in that first year. I don't remember his name, like Cosby or I'm
Oh,
pretty sure
yeah.
that's not it. Something along those name along those lines. But they had the big quarterback from Stanford in that first game against LSU. He threw for like 600 yards or something,
Yeah.
and they torched him. And everybody's like, "Oh my God, we forgot about their rate in the SEC. This is unreal." And then the next game they played somebody and they ran like that drop three
Hmm.
or like they ran that like cover 3 man under or whatever. And the thing is, LSU played man, and that Stanford quarterback was really accurate.
Right.
So he threw a lot of good balls and won against man. He wasn't great at making reads. He
Right.
didn't go through the progressions with. It's probably because at Stanford he just turned around and handed the damn ball off every time,
Yep, that's
right?
true. Yeah.
And probably most of the passes he did were play action where you were getting man to man.
Right.
And but yeah, he just wasn't very good at it. And then people were like, "Oh, this is it. They've figured out how to stop the air raid. It's irrelevant now. Just do this." And I mean, and they struggled that year. And then you get Will Rogers in running it the next year, who had ran the system in high school. And I mean, Will ran the offense as good as any college quarterbacks ran it. He was phenomenal running the offense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's just, you know, it's you got to understand how to attack the defense and how to make reads and more than anything, just go through the damn progression.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what they're. coverage is. Just go through the progression. I'm sure a Stanford quarterback, probably a really smart guy,
Yeah.
probably a smarter guy than most of the guys on the Mississippi State roster. So he's probably out there analyzing every single movement that the defenders are doing, even though, he's got Leach and Drew Hollingshead and all the coaches there telling him not to.
Right.
And he just can't help it. And I mean, Ryan Willis is like that for us in the spring league coming from Virginia Tech. He was so caught up in what the defense was doing that it took about a game and a half before he finally, of him playing really bad, before he just realized, like, okay, just this is the elementary system that is set up to be my best chance to move on to the league is to do what you're supposed to do in this elementary system. Go for a lot of yards, win a lot of games, and then teams will want to sign
Right.
you. And I think, just for the record, I think it's a travesty that he's not on a UFL roster right now because I still think he's one of the best spring league quarterbacks there's ever been. He
Yeah.
was a phenomenal player. He had the most poise of any player I've ever been around. I mean, he led us
Right.
4 straight weeks to come from behind wins of we were down 10 points or more the last 4 games, including the championship, with 8 minutes to go or less, and he led us back on all 4 games to win it.
Right.
I, I, myself and Mumme included, both think him and then Brandon Silvers, who plays for
Mhm.
he's playing for St. Louis now,
Yeah.
and I don't know where they're going to have him on the depth chart. I don't know if he's number one. I don't think he is because I'm pretty sure most of the teams kind of already had their guys
Right.
coming in. But I guarantee you, there's not going to be if there's 8 teams in the league or whatever. There's not going to be 8 better quarterbacks than Brandon Silvers. He's a
Yeah.
phenomenal quarterback,
Yeah. True.
and yeah, it's just you see Luis Perez has been a star,
Hmm.
and that's I mean we had our expansion team with Ryan Willis, and that's who we went and beat in the championship game down in Houston. Lewis was their quarterback,
Right.
and nothing away from him. I think Lewis is phenomenal as well, but I think that Ryan and Brandon can definitely play at the same level.
Right. It, it seems like the way you're coaching the games, there's not as much pressure on coaches during the week, I guess, because like you said, if you're chasing ghosts and well, they're going to do this, so we have to do this, we have to do this in practice, and they're always changing things. If you're doing the same thing over and over and not and kind of waiting to see what they're doing, the pressure comes on Friday night instead of throughout the week, like stressing about it.
Well, yeah, but not even the pressure. I mean, you'd be blown away if you could be on the sideline with us when we're down by 10 in a championship game with 7 minutes left. You'd think we were up by 20. It
Okay.
was always really, really calm.
Okay.
Everything we did was really calm. And yeah, as far as the way our game planning worked in the spring league, we'd usually play on Fridays. On Saturday, I would shoot. I'd write up a script.
Hmm.
I'd write up our game script for the week. I'd send it to Mumme. We call it our offensive menu. I'd send him the menu, and so he would be able to look at it, and then we would go have dinner or meet out in the lobby of the hotel and have a bourbon or whatever it was, and he'd be like, well, let's change, play 7 of the open script and 9. Let's flip those two, or let's run mesh out of this formation and this, so it'd be like we'd have like minimum ideas or changes that we would have there, but that's kind of how the game planning would go. And then, we're in Indianapolis practicing on turf in the summer. It's pretty dang hot. And everybody else, so there was 4 teams in our pod and then 4 in the Houston pod. We all lived in the same hotel. And everybody else would their typical week would kind of be play on, let's say if you played on Friday, Saturday, they would watch film in the morning, maybe even go out for a walk through Saturday afternoon. Sunday they would walk through, have like a special teams like type practice,
Hmm.
maybe install the game plan. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're hitting it hard out on the field. Thursday, they're back on the field doing a walkthrough, and then the game's Friday. Whereas us, if we played on Friday, Mumme would be like, okay, everybody be back by Sunday night at 8 p.m. He's like, so if you want to go home for the day or, whatever you want to do, I don't want to see you.
Hmm.
Well, we watch film Saturday morning,
Right.
but And a lot of times we'd play like Thursday night. So if we played Thursday night, we watch the film Friday morning. Then he's like, "I don't want you back until Sunday night." And a lot of times he would like go to back to Texas and get his back worked on or something. And so he'd fly out for a couple of days. But on Monday we would go out on the field and we would practice. On Tuesday we would just walk through. On Wednesday we would just walk through. So we wouldn't even leave the hotel. We would just go out like in the parking lot and
Right.
walk through while the other teams are there. And they would hate us because, they come back sweating after being on the turf field all day.
Right.
And they come into the lobby at 3 a.m. and we're sitting down there drinking beer, watching a baseball game or, whatever. And we're like, hey guys, how's the weather today? Uh, it was just, and then on Thursday, we would get to go out on, because we played at Lucas Oil Field. Thursdays we could do the walkthroughs always at Lucas Oil, so we would go out and we would just jog through our entire game plan at about 75% speed.
Okay.
Then on then Thursday, like Mummy would always, if we played Friday, like Thursday night, Mummy he called it midnight madness. But we'd do a walkthrough at midnight,
Oh wow.
and well, our games would start at the earliest at like 8 p.m. But
Oh wow.
a lot of times at 11 p.m. Eastern time.
Right.
So it kind of accomplished two things. One, it made sure that guys weren't out drinking or something because we're living downtown Indianapolis,
Right.
and you got guys the average. I mean, I was 36 or 37 at the time. And Delfonte Diamond, who's one of the best receiver coaches in the country, he does private receiver coaching probably more than any NFL receivers. Probably more NFL receivers work with him than anywhere else. But me and him were kind of brought in as player coaches. Two guys. He played for Coach Mumme at McMurray,
Yeah.
but we were like the two older guys, and then Ryan Mallett
Yep.
was the other old guy in the league, and everybody else was early to mid 20s. And so, you're early mid 20s, and you're playing football. You live downtown, a lot of girls out and stuff like that. So, wouldn't be uncommon for guys to go out the night before a game and
Right.
get out for a bit. So, he made sure that we couldn't do that, but also he liked it because he wanted the guys to be. He didn't want them to go to bed at 9 p.m. either, and then
Hmm.
wake up at 6 a.m. If it was up to him, he wasn't like team breakfast in the morning. It was okay, cool. We're gonna walk through till 12:30. Um, you come back at. He's like, we'll meet after lunch.
Right.
So he would prefer for you to sleep from 1 a.m. till noon and be well rested. He always
Right.
says, stay off your feet.
Right.
He's like, stay off your feet, come down. We'll do a walkthrough after lunch, and then we'll do a walkthrough after dinner, and then we'll go to the stadium.
Right.
But he always wants you off your feet. And as far as game planning and film and opponents, I mean, the whole league was on huddle, and Mummy didn't even have a huddle account. So granted, the spring league made it pretty easy because you had to play a 40 front.
Okay.
So there's only so many things you can do there, so it wasn't too tricky. But I
Right.
mean, it was the same way at Belhaven in 15. I remember the first time I went into his office before a game. He had done the game plan. We'd practiced it all week, and I go into his office on game day, and he's like, "What's this team run? Are they a 30 front or a 40 front? One high, two high? What do they do?"
Yeah.
He just doesn't give a shit.
That's awesome.
And I'm pretty sure that I never sit in on a game plan meeting with Leach, but I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be a whole lot different with him either.
Well, that's awesome because you tell some of even us high school coaches are like, wait, you wait till then to know? We have to know right away. No, you got to wait till then.
Yeah, well, the other thing outside of you're looking at ghosts on film. The other thing that, like Mom would always say, is just you're giving the defense too much credit. He's
It's
like, he's
awesome.
like, they still have assignments. They have things they got to line up to do. And he
Right.
said maybe the smarter coaches over on their sideline, maybe they see it and they know what's going on,
Right.
but they're not the ones that have to make the tackle
Right.
or get to the flat. So they still have their own assignments that they have to do. Same thing with when we line up in wide splits. JUCO, I've lined up 8 foot splits between my linemen
Wow.
and had the nation's leading rusher running just draw and ISO to the left, and the nation's leading passer too. So we had both. So we still threw the ball out. That was right after the spring league, but yeah, it's just everybody's got assignments that they still have to do,
Right.
and when you get these teams that do this flavor of the week defense, which we see really, if and I guess no more PC way to put it, the bad teams are the ones that are gonna come up with some crazy defense for you,
Hmm.
and you don't care what they're running anyway. You haven't watched them really, so you're just dropping back and going through your progression and throwing the open guy. But all they're
Right.
doing now is doing something their kids aren't comfortable doing.
Right.
They got new guys, who played teams that would put like safeties at D tackle to try to run and blitz like the A gaps or whatever with the wide splits, things like that. And so you just got a lot of guys that are uncomfortable doing what they're doing. The teams that give us fits are obviously teams that are better than us and they're really sound at what they do.
Right. I know you've had on you for a long time. One thing I was going to ask you, why do you like the white splits with a lineman? Like, what did that accomplish for you?
Um, I actually made a post about it today on my Twitter.
Oh, okay. I must have missed it.
Well, it was a photo of myself with my 6'9", 350 pound
Jeez,
tackle from Poland in front of me, and I'm up to like his waist. He ended
Jesus.
up signing straight from Poland to the Vikings, and then when he got cut there, he was in WWE for about 3 or 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, but the thing, the first thing that I said is like for me, being 5'10", being able to see between the linemen
Uh-huh.
instead of having to see over them was a huge thing. And one coach commented on there today, everybody was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then there was the one guy that's like, that's not true. We went foot to foot our whole career and our
Mhm.
quarterbacks never have an issue throwing over. And I'm like, maybe not them. I know for me with 1.5, 2 foot splits, I struggled immensely seeing over.
Right.
So maybe I just wasn't that good. But for me, from a personal standpoint, it's tough. And I have had a lot of high school coaches write me over the years saying, I got a 5'6" quarterback that can't see over the line. What I do, I need to put in rollouts. What area plays can I use as rollouts? And I'm like, just widen your guys out. But to hit it like obviously that opens up throwing lanes, especially when you're throwing so much mesh, shallow
Mhm.
digs, wide cross, all these balls over the middle. You can actually see it. I can't tell you how much early in my career, if I had a crossing route, I would just throw where I thought the receiver was going to be. And a lot of times it will work out and it'd be like, oh,
Right.
great throw. But it really wasn't me just making a good read and a good throw. It was just a guess.
Right.
It was a well educated guess, I suppose.
Right.
But you get the passing lanes, you get running lanes. You don't need your linemen to be monsters. So, if you're at 2 foot splits and you're going to run ISO, you got to drive that D end out of there. You got to get a good double team on that D tackle and push him out of the way to open up that gap for the lead blocker to come and get on the backer.
Right.
If there's 8 feet in between you, you don't have to drive him 1 inch. You just have to literally jump and wall him off.
Right.
If I got a 5 technique, just jump inside, wall him off. He goes outside of me, I can just wash him out.
Right.
And so you don't have to out physical guys. You can just get in their way and you can like play with spacing in that aspect. Obviously, you get the defensive ends really, really far away. So they're going to have to run a great deal to go get you. You get
Right.
those D tackles, and you might say, well, now it's harder for us to move over and get a double team on the nose or something. The nose ain't used to playing in a 16-foot space by himself.
Right.
So now he's doing something that he's never done while your O line's done this every single rep ever since they've
Right.
been with you.
Right.
So you're asking them to play in more space. They can't really do twists because you don't want to DN having to run 4 yards over before he can even get to the twist and then have to come after you and stuff. Plus, with the O line doing the vertical set, so we do that gets back. If the DN's out here and I'm the guard that he's going to come to, I vertical set back. By the time he gets all the way here, I'm just waiting, waiting, waiting. I see it. So I
Right.
don't just turn and now a guy runs around. And that blows my mind when I watch things like the national championship. Well, Washington and Michigan. Washington just their O linemen at times look lost.
Hmm. Yeah.
You had O lineman blocking nobody as a guy would run right through their gap, and every time I'd see it, I'm just like, this would be this like stunt or whatever would be so easy for what we do. Like we
Right.
wouldn't. I could have guys for a month or for a week of practice, and our O line would not be confused at all with that.
Right.
Now we might get beat physically, and they might get biased, but another benefit. And now the wide splits alone, if you just do wide splits but you don't want to do the vertical sets, you're setting yourself up for failure. You
Yeah.
got a vertical set if you're going to wide split because if we do have a center and a guard, and you line up a guy in the A gap. If we don't vertical set, we just try to slide or something. He's going to run right through. That's when
Yeah.
you put like a safety there.
Right.
But if we vertical set, he's running, and it just becomes this optical illusion that you can run right through the gap. As we
Hmm.
vertical set, we catch you. So, I think that's what you're saying. Like defense has to play pretty vanilla,
Yeah.
so you know what's going to come for you, and then you can kind of adjust if they're a team that's going to bull rush you and stronger than you. Maybe you change your vertical set from 4 steps back to 2 steps back,
Hmm.
where they don't catch you on skates and drive you back into the quarterback. So there's a lot of things that go into that, and then also by forcing them to get upfield around these wide splits, that really makes the screen game deadly. And it gives
Right.
that running back, if you're doing like the delay screens in the backs or you know shovel passes, things like that, there's a lot of space for them to maneuver
Yeah.
and get around and not get caught up in the line, which you will see in tighter splits at times.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really outside of getting outside of double teams being a bit more difficult to get to. I don't think personally, I don't feel like after you know what 12, 11 or 12 seasons of playing with the wide splits and the vertical sets and more seasons coaching in it than that. I don't feel like there's any downfall to it outside of stuff or to get a double team.
Yeah. Because I don't have big offensive linemen, but we have a shorter-ish quarterback. And last
Mm-hmm.
year there were times where he got happy feet and took out of the pocket and didn't wait for the pad protection. And I always wonder if it's because maybe he can't see it, maybe he's freaking out, and now when he moves, he has more room. And I never thought to just like spread the alignment out to like help that.
And it also gives you unbelievable. I mean, because if you just think if you got those DNs and they're rushing wide,
Yeah.
now you're going to have, if it's a 40 front or whatever, you're going to have those 2D tackles between them and the guards because these guys went so wide. You're going to literally have about you might be hash to hash on a high school field with
Yeah.
just 2D tackles, 3 linemen, and then whatever linebackers. So when those DNs run wide, it gives you the biggest lanes to step up and throw in
Right.
or to just scramble and take off. And I could probably go, year after, especially when we did the really wide splits at the JUCO, I could probably find you 100 passes where our quarterback is standing. He's playing 7-on-7 essentially. He
Mhm.
stepped up. All 4D linemen are behind him, and he's sitting there looking with nobody in front of him. He's just going through the read
Right.
because the splits are so wide. You just one step over this way, one step over that way, or even if you come through like if we whiff on the block, maybe you do get through that A gap.
Mhm.
It's so much room for the quarterback just to shuffle over a step or two, and
Right.
now you're going to turn around and try to get him, but now that lineman's going to turn around and catch you, and that's where you get those situations a lot of times where the quarterback's just essentially playing 7-on-7 with pads on.
Right. Oh, if once I tell my head coach I want to do that, he's going to slap me. He's going to tell me no.
Well, it's tough. I've been in situations where I'd just be hired as a coordinator, and yeah, I went to Manchester University during the COVID year, and they brought me to be the pass game coordinator. They had one of the top rushers in the nation in D3 the year before,
Right.
and they brought me to. They're like, you bring your passing offense with our run game, and we're going to be dominant. And it was just a mess
Hmm.
because what we do is a system. It's not a set of plays.
Right.
The running game and the pass game go hand in hand, and the protection's like the biggest part. So you can't say let's run the air raid with slot protection, for
Right.
example, or something like that. It just doesn't work. And you know, at the end of the day, I feel like it can work with anybody because it's made for teams that aren't very good. That's why they created this. They didn't go to Iowa Westland with monsters all over the field and say, "Hey, let's run this offense." They were like, "Shit, we got to find something to even the playing field." So if guys are good, it's easy. If they're not that good, it gives them a chance to kind of play their own style that keeps them in the game. And in my experience, through all my years, because we haven't been great every year. Um, the only times we ever haven't been great, it wasn't a complete buy-in, and often that would come from the offensive line coach.
Okay.
Because he's over there. Because most linemen, when you first start doing this, it's completely different than what they've done
Mhm.
their whole career, and they're like, "This is stupid." And then if the O line coach is like, "Yeah, it is. This is what he wants,"
Mhm.
then you're automatically setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
So it's got to be a buy-in. And I would take if I had like a what was that old movie where like the kid became like the manager of the Minnesota Twins? Did you?
Oh, it's
It,
the Angels in the outfield.
it,
No.
but it was in that same boat of like that and
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year. It's the one where the
Yeah.
kid became the manager of the Twins, and it's like if I had something now where they were like, okay, Stan, you got your degree now. Welcome, you're the new head coach of Alabama.
Yeah.
If I got that, I wouldn't say like, oh, I can hire the best O line coach in football. I would be the first name that I'd think of is Jonathan Ashton, a guy that's coaching a third league team in Finland that played O line for me for 3 years because he knows what I expect. He knows the
Right.
system and he believes in the system and buys into it.
Right.
So, you know, at any position on offense, I want to hire guys that believe in what we do. I'd rather take a first year coach over a guy that's coached 25 years in the NFL
Right.
because the system is set up to work if everybody buys into the system. Now, on defense, give me the best staff possible, and I'm staying the hell away and let them do their thing because they're way better than them. I mean, and all these offensive coaches are probably way better and way smarter than I am about offense, but not the air raid. And
Right.
so when it comes to the air raid, if that's what we're running, I want people. I know that belief is that's the core of everything we do,
Right.
and that's just how I've always felt, and that's when we've always been best is when we had guys that I already knew and we knew what we were doing. And
Right.
Mummy's very particular about that, about who he hires on staffs. And that's why I kind of, am going wherever he goes because he trusts me.
Hmm.
And he's got a handful of other coaches that he really trusts, and he knows that there's no teaching involved. There's no, hey, do this at practice. It's just go do your thing.
Right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you donating all this time. I went over a little bit, but a lot of good stuff. I appreciate you.
No, it's been a lot of fun, coach.